Welcome back, ghouls and goblins. I hope you're having a magical day, and thank you so much for taking the time to support the channel. We continue through our journey of the top 10s, looking at first the commons, then the uncommons in two previous videos. Today, pulling up the rares. This is potentially the most meaningful rarity within Magic the Gathering. Many times, mythic cards are chase cards, are commander cards, and may not necessarily be constructed competitive. Not within standard many times. So the rares are super exciting, and that's not to diminish any mythics, because every now and again we get an absolute heater. And let me tell you what, Dominaria's got a few of them, but that is in tomorrow or the next video, depending on the release schedule here. Today is the rare, so get excited. Let's take a look at the top 10 rares. We have the Anointed Peacekeeper up first. Keep in mind, these are in no particular order. They're all just bombs, baby. For 3 mana, a 3/3 with Vigilance, Human Cleric. The Cleric and Human creature type here, very important. As it enters the battlefield, look at an opponent's hand, then choose any card name. That is an incredible amount of information, allowing you to see what your opponent is planning on with their future turns. Holy Toledos. And then you actually get to choose one of those cards, and spells your opponent's cast with the chosen name cost 2 more to cast. Activated abilities of sources of the chosen name will also cost 2 more to activate unless they are mana abilities. Sorry, Loyalty, you're done. So, some pros and cons. This is the new Elite Spellbinder. The Elite Spellbinder was a permanent exile, meaning if they removed your binder, it remained taxed. You could flash it to tax something else. If they remove the Peacekeeper, so is the tax, right? It's gone. They can do what they please, right? So you may need to protect it. However, at the end of the day, their removal spell is probably in hand, and you can name that spell, right? You can get a little bit of wiggle room here. However, I think that this card is going to get up to some shenanigans. Moving on to the Evolved Sleeper for 1 mana. Another human. This is a 1/1. Look at all this text, baby. That's how you can tell it's good. For 1 mana, it becomes a 2/2. For 2 mana, if it is a cleric, by becoming that 1 mana buffed up 2/2, it's going to become a 3/3, which is quite nice. It adds the Phyrexian type. And then if it has the Phyrexian type, you can pay 3 to put a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card, and then lose 1 life, right? So pay 3 mana as many times as we want, right? We can just stack counters on it with all of our mana. That's incredible. Losing life in the process, not so great. However, drawing cards, woof, right? So this is an incredible card. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get badder. By the time you're drawing, it's a 4/4, 5/5, 6/6 for 1 mana, right? That's ridiculous, dude. Also a human, so it can be buffed up. Really looking forward to seeing what we can come up with utilizing the Evolved Sleeper. King Darien 48 for 3 mana, a 2/3, and other creatures you control get +1/+1. Wow, just like a generalized creature lord. That's fantastic. Human soldier as well. That human type is nice. We can pay 5 to put a +1/+1 counter on it and create a 1/1 soldier token. Sacrificing it will give tokens that we control hexproof and indestructible until the end of turn. That's just like a lot of really good things starting to stack up on top of each other. Buffing up our field, it's a mana sink that allows us to grow and, taller and wider, and then we can sacrifice ourselves to protect the field. Woof. This is a very valuable card, all for 3 mana, mind you. Carry on Beastcaller, 2 mana as a 2/2 Dryad Warrior. Whenever you cast a creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and then whenever it dies, distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control, where X is the number of +1/+1 counters that were, previously on the Beastcaller. So, it's 2 mana. It's a 2/2. It's going to get bigger. It's going to get badder, much like the Evolved Sleeper, right? So I think that, if you are in a nice mid-range deck, if you're in a creature-based deck, the fact that this is going to grow turn after turn after turn is very, very valuable. And then when it dies, you can put those counters on something else. Maybe it's got trample, right? I think this is a very valuable card. Temporary Lockdown for 3 mana as a white enchantment spell. When it enters the battlefield, exile each non-land permanent with mana value 2 or less until it leaves the battlefield. That's dirty, dude. This is going to be very annoying for aggro decks. People will need to main deck enchantment removal. Everyone's going to be running temporary lockdown, so everybody should be prepared to remove it if you have mana value 2 or less non-land permanents in your deck. Mono red aggro, mono white aggro. These decks, the sacrifice deck, will have token decks, right? Just nukes tokens. You know what I mean? Ugh. So it is worth protecting your creatures from this if you can. Even running the enchantment removal. I'm trying to talk about how good this card is, and I'm already talking about how to beat it. That should maybe be a little clue. I've got a raging clue. Guardian of New Benalia. This almost gives me a raging clue for 2 mana as a 2/2 with enlist. So whenever we attack with it alone, or with it, I believe we can tap other untapped creatures to give it +1/+1. Whenever the Guardian of New Benalia enlists a creature, scry 2. So looking through our deck, finding the appropriate cards for the match, getting rid of lands. That's going to be nice. Plus we can discard a card, giving it indestructible until the end of turn, tapping it as well. Just the fact that we can grab indestructible is incredible. It gets bigger through the enlist if, we have some 1/1s that can't necessarily get through for the turn. Sometimes you do get in these weird standoffs, and it's nice, like, okay, well, I can, channel all my other creatures into this one big one. Now I know that they can't get the kill on it with the block, and, maybe they do go for it in some wacky way, and boom, grabs indestructible, right? So, I really do think that the Guardian will be able to apply consistent pressure, which is really nice. Looking forward to that. Braids, Arisen, Nightmare, 3 mana, 3/3, legendary creature, Nightmare. Whoa! At the beginning of your end step, you may sacrifice an artifact, creature, enchantment, land, or planeswalker. If you do, each opponent may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with it. For each opponent who doesn't, that player will lose 2 life and you draw a card. This is going to just help you keep the field clean. If they aren't into it, if they don't have bunch of token creatures or a bunch of artifact tokens to just like kind of bleed off, then you're probably going to be drawing cards and they're going to be losing life, and that is a winning formula. This alongside Deadly Dispute, not Deadly Dispute, that's rotated. Invoke Despair, that's the one. Mono Black is in a good spot, and it did lose Loath, but it's gaining a lot of really powerful creatures. Defiler of Vigor for 5 mana as a 6/6 with Trample, Phyrexian Worm creature as an additional cost to cast green permanents. You may pay 2 life. Spells that we pay life this way will cost 1 green source less to cast, and then it will only reduce the effect of green mana, not generic colorless mana. And then whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. Not just one, each creature you control. So, I can see this being played in a mono green weenies. I don't know if that's a thing, right? But just like a whole bunch of 1-drops, 2-drops, flooding the field. This is playable in like this in the Great Henge. Oh Lord, if you can also mitigate that life lost through things like the Prosperous Innkeeper. So when these creatures are entering play, you're gaining life. And then, playing off the top of the library. I think this is going to be a good card. Look out, kids. It's also a 6/6 with Trample. Let's not forget that. I know that's not super important with the card, but it's like that's a big booty, baby. We have Ivy, Gleeful Spellthief for 2. This is a 2/1 with flying, and whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, you may copy that spell. The copy targets Ivy. There are so many ways to play this. Magecraft did rotate, however, it's fine. This is good enough. There are so many different ways to play this. Keep in mind that fight effects have 2 targets. Any other spells with 2 targets will not work. You need a single target spell, but they're there. They definitely exist, and there's a lot of them, right? So the Gleeful Spellthief is going to be a bit of a problem. 2 mana, right? Flying. And then it just is like a copy engine. Oh, no. Oh, no. We have the phasing of Zhalfir, 4 mana as a read ahead. So, if you're unfamiliar, you can have this enter as any of the phases with the lore counters. As it enters, if we do not read ahead to the 2nd or 3rd phase, another target non-land permanent phases out. It can't phase in for as long as you control the phasing. And then that will trigger again on the 2nd lore counter. They're the same. And then finally, destroy all creatures. For each creature destroyed this way, its controller creates a 2/2 black Phyrexian creature token. Is this a field wipe within mono blue? Question mark. kind of. They get the tokens, but who cares? They're tokens. You can easily bounce them, right? Bouncy token, bouncy token, bouncy token. You know, even combining this with a, like, it's really easy to cast this and then to meat hook those zombies away, right? I think this card is probably going to be a problem for me. I don't want to play against this at all as an aggro player. And then we're into the Anointed Peacekeeper. So those are our top 10 rares for standard or constructed. You know, the historic portion of these videos was actually cemented in this portion of the rarity because some rares within the set are so good. Like the Horde Master here for 2 mana, other goblins get +1/+1, but they're not great in standard. Not a ton of goblins in standard, but historic, oh boy, look out. Whenever it or another goblin you control dies, exile the top card of your library. If it's a goblin creature card, you may cast that card until the end of your next turn. Very, very, very good. It's going to trigger multiple times. If they field wipe, it pushes all of your golems, golems, whatever, up. And then, you know, you're going to grab a whole bunch of them. Others will provide haste, and you just play all these goblins again, right? Which is really cool. So it does add some survivability to the goblin decks. If, you know, we don't get it, we do get hit with a field wipe. Keep in mind, it's when it dies, not when it exiles. So Settle the Wreckage still wrecks it. But, you know, the goblin deck getting a big upgrade and the elf deck getting a big upgrade. Also the Merfolk deck. That's why we have the historic section here within these videos of the format. The Leaf Crowned Visionary for 2 mana as a 1/1 elf druid. Elves you control get +1/+1. Whenever you cast an elf spell, you may pay 1 green source. If you do, draw a card. A lot, you know, you can generate green mana up the wazoo with elves. So this will allow you to draw it, pushes up all your other elves. That's going in the historic competitive elf deck. You know, Explorer as well. You know, woof, great card. And then finally, the Darien Hexcatcher, 2 mana, 1/1 with flash, Merfolk Wizard. Other Merfolks you control get +1/+1. Sacrifice a Merfolk, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. That is nice. A flash lord that acts as a counter spell. I can definitely get behind that, right? So you can see why this section of historic cards was made for these specific 3 historic / explorer lords. They're so good, right? You know, goblins, druids, and merfolk getting some love. And then we have our honorable mentions, if you will. The Leyline Binding for 6 mana. It has flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until it leaves the battlefield. So typically not great. However, we have a lot of domain decks, right? So I think it's fair to mention 1 less to cast for each basic land type among lands that you control. You can run Triumphs, right? To reduce this, potentially ping 1. And at that point, 1 mana exile with flash. And, you know, that's very good at that point, right? So I think we might see this be played. The Elder Dragon War, I really like this, actually. 4 mana with read ahead. Again, you can skip these phases if you want, or the triggers, mind you. Dealing 2 damage to each creature and each opponent. Nice. Discard any number of cards and then draw that many cards. Decent. And then create a 4/4 token with flying. Can't complain, right? So get a nice field wipe. You find the right cards for your next turns and you get a body. I don't mind it whatsoever. Then we have the Haughty Djinn for 3 mana. Its power is equal to the number of instant and sorcery cards in our graveyard. Toughness 4. Instant and sorcery spells that we cast will cost 1 less, which is fantastic. And it has flying as well, which is maybe one of the best things about it, because you can like get this to be a 6/4. There's phase out cards. There's lots of things like this, and open up those attack lanes and just smash your opponent. The flying here is pretty ridiculous. The 4 toughness, really nice as well, dodging a lot of removal here. And then we're back to the ley line. Holy Toledos. Those are all of my favorite rare cards within Dominaria United. If you have any cards that you'd like that didn't make the list, leave them down below in the comments. I'm in over my head. I'm just one guy trying to master the meta in the days prior to the release. And we've been putting in some work. I have over 30 standard constructed decks ready to lay out within the pre-release early access event, which is on Tuesday. Stay Tuesdayed. for that, right, we're going to go through and just like play so many decks, right? It's going to be a good time. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, share the channel to your friends, families, and folks, whatever. Just thank you so much, everyone, for the support. Have a magical day. Can't wait to see you soon in the next.